program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP LP 101.9 FM.
This meeting of the Eau Claire City Council will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton, Councilmember Emanuel, Councilmember Kincaid,
Here.
Klinkhammer,
Here.
Mitchell,
Here.
Strobel,
Here.
Tebow,
Here.
Von Hayden,
Here.
Weld,
Here.
Worthman, Jean.
Here.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, and welcome everyone to the June 12th, 2017 session of the Eau Claire City Council. During its Monday night session, the Council conducts hearings and public discussions in which we listen to public input and invite public comment and ask questions in preparation for our legislative session, which convenes in these chambers tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. We do welcome those of you who are joining us in chambers and are grateful, as always, to Community Television, who is streaming and broadcasting these proceedings for members who cannot attend tonight in person. For those of you who wish to speak, I will briefly review the protocol. When I introduce an agenda item, there is a staff report, and then council may ask a couple questions, and then you are invited to the podium. You may approach the podium right in front of us, state your name and your address for the public record, and then begin your comments. We do have a 5-minute speaking limit. Even when there's a small audience, we pretty much adhere to that, as it makes for a good flow of the meeting, and it is fair for the first speaker and the last to get the same amount of speaking time. You do not need to use the whole 5 minutes, but they are there should you need them to make your point. Sometimes council members have questions when you're done speaking, so if you just linger there for a minute, it gives me a chance to ask if there are any questions. If you need any help this evening, you can ask Ms. Merle, who sits right here, and she will help you. Also, and lastly, if you wish to leave a comment but you don't want to speak in person, there are blue pieces of paper in the back of chambers. You may write out your comment, and those will be distributed to us before tomorrow's meeting. They do have equal weight as a spoken comment, so if you're just not comfortable speaking in public, feel free to write out your thoughts on that blue piece of paper. With that introduction, we will get ready or begin our agenda for the evening. We have lots of land use issues tonight, so Mr. Tufte, you can just stay at the podium, I guess, huh? You're up here a lot. And we look forward to hearing from you. Our first item then is a public hearing on proposed ordinance rezoning property at 2622 Sessions from TR temporary 1A to R3P, and to adopt a general development plan for twin homes. Mr. Tufte.
Thank you. This is the property on the south side of Sessions next to London Road. There is R3 zoning to the west and to the north. This is an aerial photo of the property, again with the fourplexes to the west and north, vacant land to the east and to the south. This is the plat for the 3 twin homes, meaning there's 6 lots. Each lot is combined with the adjacent for the twin homes. And this is the preliminary, or the site plan for the project, showing the layout of the 3 twin homes on the property. The back of this site is a big hill, which renders it not developable, and they are placing the structures up on the front end of the property. There is a project narrative provided by applicant that's also in your packet. The comprehensive plan does identify the site as being appropriate for medium density residential development. Again, there are existing fourplexes to the west and to the south or north. And the Plan Commission believed the rezoning request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and would be compatible with surrounding land uses. The report goes on to go over the preliminary plat and the site plan for the project. The Plan Commission has recommended approval of the rezoning, and the Plan Commission approved the preliminary plat and the site plan with the conditions that are noted in your report. Are there any questions?
I see no questions for you, Mr. Tufti. Thank you. Are there members of the public who came to speak to this rezoning project and general development plan? Anyone here for item 1? Okay, the chair will close item 1, bring our attention to item 2, which is a public hearing on a proposed ordinance rezoning property located south of the Mount Washington Ski Jump Hill from R1A to P Public, and to adopt a site plan for a new ski jump. Mr. Tufti.
This is the Mount Washington Ski Jump site off of Menominee Street, and they are proposing to rezone that triangular piece of land immediately to the south to add it to the park. So they got room for the new ski jump. And the surrounding area is mostly residential. There's an aerial photo then of the property. This was taken in May. You can see there's still snow on the site. Again, so the existing ski jumps are located in this area. They go from the smallest up to the biggest jump being over here. This is the property then being added to the site to make room for the bigger ski jump. Their clubhouse and parking's up on the front end of the site off of Menominee. And there's the site plan for the project. The existing jump sits about right here. They'll be removing that, placing the new jump further to the south on that triangular piece of property they're proposing to rezone. You can see the big hill going down, and then again the clubhouse and parking area. This is a cross section then of the hill. It shows how they'll be regrading out the hill to get it a little bit flatter, filling in up here. This is the existing jump that gets removed. This is the new jump. It's about twice the height, goes from about 50 up to 100 foot in height. And there's a nice rendering of the new jump. Again, there's a narrative provided by applicant explaining the request in your packet. The applicant is proposing to reconstruct the existing 40-meter ski jump at the site, and the project would involve removal of the existing large jump, regrading and surfacing the hill, and then construction of this new taller jump. The application involves the rezoning, the acceptance of that triangular piece of land by the city as a park site, and that'll be a separate item on your agenda tomorrow, and then the approval of this site plan for the project. This property having P Public zoning requires council approval of this site plan. The comprehensive plan designates the Mount Washington Ski Jumping Hill as a park with P Public zoning, and this rezoning with this application adds the area shown, that south triangular piece, to the site. The property is basically the backyard of Dan Mattoon's house, and he's donating the additional land needed for the improvement. The Plan Commission believe the rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan and that we should accept the acceptance of the property. The site plan then shows the location of the new jump, and their structural elevations illustrate its height. The council will need to judge the compatibility of the request with the surrounding land use. The lighting of that jump should be downcast fixtures, meeting city standards. City engineers should review the regrading of the hill for erosion control and drainage. Their parking facility was expanded from 8 stalls up to 11 stalls. The narrative provided by applicant provides information on the parking needs for this facility. There actually isn't any parking requirement for a ski jump in city code, so we relied on that information. We would note that their practice time, they usually have enough parking on site or may have a little bit of parking on the street. It's when they hold 2 events at this facility that it does result in significant on-street parking in the area. They did state in their narrative they would provide a shuttle service for this situation. There's a small sign on this property. It's out in the public right-of-way. They should move that at this time back onto the site. There's a shed that also needs to be moved back to proper setbacks. There's mechanical equipment in front of the building that they show is screened with fenced. The Waterways and Parks Commission did recommend approval of this request. The Plan Commission recommended approval of the rezoning and the site plan with conditions. Those conditions are listed in your report, and I'd certainly answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Tufti? I see none. Thank you. Are there members of the public who came to speak tonight about the ski jump project? Anyone here for the ski jumping? Okay. The chair will close item 2 then and turn our attention to item number 3 on our agenda, which is a public hearing on the proposed ordinance rezoning properties on the west side of North Claremont, north of Colip, from C2P and TR1A to C2P, and to adopt a general development plan for the Hope Gospel Missions Men's Facility.
The jumpers are leaving right now. So.
Yeah, did they speak at the
They
Plan
spoke
Commission?
at Plan Commission, yeah.
So
They're
they
fine.
felt comfortable?
Yeah.
Everything's all right?
Just here in case there were questions.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Hope Gospel's property on the west side of Mercantile Drive, which is on the west side of North Claremont Avenue, north of Colip Drive. The south half of the site has already been zoned and approved for their men's facility. They're basically requesting now to rezone the north half of the site so that they can take their building and turn it on the site and face Claremont Avenue. And the surrounding area is mostly zoned commercial. And there's an aerial photo of the two properties. These are commercial uses to the south. These are fourplexes, and the commercial uses around the rest of the area. It's a big city drainage pond. This is the existing plan that City Council has approved for the south portion of the property. You notice it faces south towards this auto repair area and a XL substation. And their proposal now is to take that same facility and turn it facing east towards Claremont Avenue, and then the back of their site would essentially be vacant. But it is the same facility, just simply on a larger site. And that's the building elevation that would now face Claremont Avenue for the project. Again, there's a narrative provided by applicant in your packet. Explain the request. Again, the project's the same development plan previously approved by Plan Commission and Council for the south half of the site. And this request rezones the north half of the site for the project and then turns the building to face east. It's a 15,380 square foot building. It has a 41 stall parking lot. Applicant's narrative describes the facility as providing rooms for up to 46 adult men. Offices are also provided for 6 staff members. The facility is a combination of dwelling units, short-term stay housing, and office counseling services under the terms of our zoning code. The proposed zoning of the property to a C2P would allow the dwelling units by conditional use, and then the other uses of the facility would be permitted use. In terms of the rezoning, comprehensive plan does identify the site as being appropriate for commercial development, and Plan Commission did believe the proposed design of the facility would be compatible with the surrounding uses to the site. The Plan Commission did recommend screening be provided along that south lot line due to the nature of the commercial uses immediately to the south. The concerns with these types of facilities, how they may be operated, and the impacts that may occur with surrounding properties, and the narrative that is provided by applicant in your packet describes their activities and services that they provide with other facilities within our community. The report goes on and describes the conditional use permit and general development plan, which basically shows the layout of this facility. Final site plans would have to go back to Plan Commission consistent with that general development plan if this rezoning is approved. We also have an engineer's report in the packet. Plan Commission did recommend approval of the rezoning, and the conditional use permit was approved with the conditions noted in the report. Are there any questions?
Questions for Mr. Tufti? Does the applicant anticipate a construction date?
They have fundraising that they have told us they'd like to get done this year. If not, it may drag into next year. Plan Commission actually approved the conditional use permit for a 2-year timeline instead of the normal 1 year, just to allow their fundraising to occur under that longer time frame. And they're here if you have any questions of them.
It might require a 2-year timeframe?
They noted in their application it may take them that long, yes.
I see. Thank you. Any other? I see no other questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there members of the public or the applicant who wish to speak to this item? Anyone? No? Okay. The chair will close item 3 then. Bring our attention to item 4 on our agenda, which is a public hearing on a proposed ordinance rezoning property at 3260 Birch Street from C1AP to C1P and to adopt a general development plan for a daycare facility. Mr. Tufti.
This site is on Birch Street, just north of where it magically becomes River Prairie Drive, if you actually follow it straight into Altoona. There is commercial zoning to the north and residential immediately to the west, which is a church. There's the site, and that's the office building immediately to the north, and that's the church immediately to the west. That's the site plan for the project. It actually share a driveway with the office building to the north, and this property was set up for that shared driveway situation. And the parking then is to the front. That's the daycare facility, and it's outdoor play areas to the back. And there's a rendering of their facility. Again, there's a narrative provided by applicant in your packet explaining the request. The facility will care for children ages 6 weeks up to 12 years. They have 26 staff persons on site, and they operate from 5 in the morning till midnight, Monday through Friday. The present zoning of this property is C1AP is for office professional use only. The proposed rezoning to a C1P does allow a daycare facility by a conditional use permit. The comprehensive plan identifies the site as being appropriate for commercial development, and the Plan Commission feels the C1P is appropriate and consistent with the comprehensive plan. The report goes on to describe the conditional use permit, which was reviewed by the Plan Commission, along with a site plan for this facility, which was also reviewed by the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission has recommended approval of the rezoning, and the Plan Commission has approved the conditional use permit and site plans for the project with the conditions as noted in the report. Are there any questions?
Questions for Mr. Tufti? C1A, what is the A?
A is a zoning designation for a professional office park. We only have probably about 4 or 5 properties in the community with that zoning, but it does not allow a daycare facility, which is the purpose of the rezoning.
And there isn't really a designated park per se.
No, this was set up for a 3-parcel
Oh,
office park, and Scobie built their office
Oh.
up on the hill. There's 2 parcels left. It was actually developed back in the late 1980s, I can remember, so it's been vacant for quite a few years.
okay. Thank you. And I see no further questions. Members of the public who wish to speak to the daycare plan, daycare facility?
We're not going to be bashful.
Yeah, everyone's,
My name is Scott Rasmussen, 3412 McElroy Court, representing Duran Builders. We've worked with Cassie and her staff, and they're excited to get into a new, larger facility. We certainly look for your support. If we're able to get that, we would be in the ground sometime by the first part of July and deliver their facility sometime in December. I think she's actually planning a big New Year's party for all the little beaners in the new facility. So if you have any questions, I can answer those. If not, Cassie has a comment as well.
And questions for Mr. Rasmussen? No,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello. My name is Cassie Stokeland, and I'm the owner of the Learning Tree. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm just very excited about this new project. It's just going to be a great new thing for all of my families that I have enrolled already at the daycare, and as well as we'll be hiring some new staff for the Eau Claire community. So it's going to be a great thing. So I wish to have your support. Thank you.
So much. Anyone else? The chair will close that item then, and we have a decision point. We make our decision tomorrow. It's a little different than the Plan Commission, so. We'll close item 4 and bring our attention to item 5. Our final item for the evening is an ordinance, proposed ordinance rezoning property at 1807 Oxford from I-1 and I-2 to I-1P, and to adopt a general development plan for the brewing project. Mr. Tufti.
This is the property on the east side of Oxford, just south of Platt. The surrounding area has mostly industrial or central business district zoning. There's an aerial photo of the site. You'll note when we get the site plan that the north portion of this building is demolished. Actually, there's a middle portion of the building that's demolished and rebuilt as part of the project. It's the Children's Theater, Quick Trip. This is the site plan then for the project. They do have a new loading dock. This is an existing portion of the building that remains. The center portion here is all demolished, rebuilt. This is an existing portion of the building that remains. They have a parking lot then to the south, the primary entrance down here. Loading dock area up here. And that's their rendering, and that's a nice redo of an old building for that site. This is a zoning, a certified survey map with right-of-way dedication and a site plan. The plans show the existing building on the site being partially demolished with new structure added. The floor plans show the primary use of this new building will be a brewery with an accessory tasting room. This parcel has 2 zonings, I-1 and I-2, which is not appropriate. The rezoning of the property to an I-1P corrects that situation, and then the proposed I-1P zoning limits the use of the property to the project as shown, and then allows the reduced front yard setback for the building. The site plan does show a portion of the existing building on the site within the street right away, and that will actually be demolished. And then the site plan shows the building at a 8.7-foot setback from the existing right-of-way line, and that is proposed to be then dedicated as part of the certified survey map for the project. The report goes on and describes the site plan aspects of the project, which were reviewed by the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission did recommend approval of the rezoning, and with its review of the rezoning, the Plan Commission has also recommended that the certified survey map with the right-of-way dedication of the project be accepted. And then the Plan Commission did approve the site plan with the conditions noted in the draft letter to applicant. Are there any questions?
Questions for Mr. Tufti? Councilmember Strobel.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Tufti, so is this one of the last hurdles that this project owner will have to go through to get things going? Do they have to come back to Plan Commission for anything, or is it?
No, there's no public review that I'm aware of. They'll have a certified survey map they'll need to file. They'll have building plans that we'll handle at our level. We'll get the signatures on the certified survey map. I'm not sure if there's development agreements that may have to come back to council or not. I'm not sure of that. We don't get involved with those types of things. But from our department's perspective, this would be the end.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Weld.
Thank you, Council President. Just a question kind of about the subject a little bit. When is Oxford scheduled to be done, the street itself?
The city engineer has indicated to me there's no specific schedule. It'd be more dependent upon the development activity in the area.
So maybe a year, maybe 5? Or?
5 would be a max. He's told me a 1 to 5 year.
Okay.
I would guess it's a 2 to 3 would be my guess, but as projects get built, there's going to be more and more
Right.
pressure for a nice new street out there. So.
Right.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Strobel.
I thought I saw City Attorney Nick trying to answer the question about where are we at on the process, I guess.
Mr. Nick.
For a city process, I think this is it, but the property hasn't closed yet. So the land is RDA property, so we have to finalize the legal description, the CSM, and then we'll expect a number of transactions coming forward. One, the transaction of the deed from the RDA to Mr. Glass or his corporation, and then the other aspect you'll likely see is then a transfer upon approval from RDA of outlots to the city for future park use. So between that private parcel that we're anticipating deeding to the brewing project and then the Chippewa River, that section for the trail is still in RDA ownership. You'll, again, pending RDA approval, then you'll see a resolution accepting that land.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Thank you. And I noticed that the Plan Commission agenda item that was approved includes the site plan. So the Plan Commission has approved a site plan for this project.
That's correct.
Okay, I see no further questions. Does the applicant wish to speak to the project?
Good evening, William Glass, 6056 Inwood Drive, Eau Claire. Just excited to get going. Any questions?
Looks like we don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? That brings to an end our agenda for the evening. And there being no further business to come before this body, on a motion by Councilmember Tewalt, seconded by Councilmember Weld, this meeting is adjourned without objection.
The Eau Claire City Council meeting will return in a moment. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM. We now return you to the Eau Claire City Council meeting.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton.
Here.
Emmanuel. Kincaid.
Here.
Klinkhammer.
Here.
Mitchell.
Here.
Strobel.
Here.
Tewalt.
Here.
Barnhagen.
Here.
Weld.
Here.
Workman. John.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, and welcome everyone to the Tuesday, June 12th, 2017 legislative session of the Eau Claire City Council. During its legislative session, the council deliberates and takes action on the agenda items before us. We have prepared for this responsibility by working with citizens, collaborating with staff, and reading the considerable amount of materials in our packet. We arrived this afternoon prepared to exercise our duty. And we welcome those of you who are joining us in chambers tonight and are appreciative, as always, to community television for broadcasting or streaming these proceedings for people who cannot attend in person. We do have important items on our agenda and a rather long agenda today, so we'll get to work straight away. And we begin with the consent agenda. Do council members have questions or wish to remove an item for separate consideration? On a motion then by Councilmember Beaton, seconded by Councilmember Tewalt, the consent agenda is moved. Discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel. Strobel,
Aye.
T-Wall,
Aye.
Ron Hayden,
Aye.
Wells,
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
And the consent agenda is passed. I have one proclamation this afternoon and would ask Mr. Burl Middleton and Dr. Ducksworth to join me at the podium. Other people can come too. Do they want to?
They're members of the committee.
Okay. Welcome. You can see better from up here, and you can see how hard work you've done. So each year we proclaim this important day, and I read a little bit off of the proclamation, but then we would welcome a presentation about this annual event. Okay? So we have an important and annual recognition of a historical event in our country, which we as a city are happy to participate in, of course. And it goes, whereas Juneteenth is the oldest celebration commemorating the Emancipation Proclamation, the document which ended slavery in the United States, and June 19, 1865 is recorded in history as a date when the word of the emancipation brought freedom to the last remaining slaves in our country. This is an important event in the United States, which has now grown into a global celebration which encourages self-development and appreciation for all races and cultures. And the Uniting Bridges, Inc., which, with the help of many area organizations and community members, has organized a celebration in Carson Park on June 19th. This celebration is the 17th annual Juneteenth celebration, and we therefore happily proclaim again June 19th, 2017 as Juneteenth Day.
On the behalf of Uniting Bridges and the Juneteenth Committee, we thank you. Juneteenth is a celebration of the Union Army freeing the slaves. It's a celebration of the end of the Civil War, and it means freedom. It has meant freedom in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, and in the rest of the country. And I think in these times and this environment, that idea of freedom and uniting, especially across race, is an incredibly important thing that we need to do. And I thank the City Council for taking leadership and helping to sponsor this event.
Well, I'd also like to thank and appreciate the council for its support over the years. 17 years. 17 years is a lifetime, unless you're doing it in prison. Of course, it'd be a little bit different. But we have an opportunity to show the rest of our communities. We have a lot of small communities in our area. And what we have tried to show over the years has been that diversity is a good thing, togetherness is a good thing, and we've been very pro-social and proactive in doing that. I mean, look at the rest of the country. And we are in a situation where we actually have an opportunity to continue to do the things that we've started years and years and years ago. So with your support, we will continue to do that. And I just want to thank you again and appreciate the support that you've given us over the years.
You can keep that one. And join, you can see by the poster on the slide that the Juneteenth celebration is 5:30 in Carson Park on June 19th.
Yes, it is.
We'll see you there.
Thank
Unless you're cooking this year. I'm not coming.
No.
Good,
No,
I'll come then.
We'll have two steaks.
Yeah. Are these,
You can keep that.
all right. Thank you so much. We continue our work then of the afternoon by opening up the business agenda with item 20. which opens with a resolution granting a combination Class B intoxicating liquor and malt beverage and Class A cabaret license to the Maple Lounge. Mr. Hofer.
Thank you. This is a little bit of an unusual circumstance, and we wanted to make sure the City Council was aware of what was going on with this license. The sole license holder and sole agent for the LLC that held the license passed away. Under Wisconsin statutes, the license can transfer to the personal representative of the license holder's estate, and that's what's happened here. Now, with the timing of that transfer, it happened right before renewal, and so with the renewal pending, we wanted the City Council to be aware of what was going on with this license. We had the personal representative in for a license review meeting. We haven't had any issues or problems at the Maple Lounge and didn't have any objections to the license being renewed, but wanted to let you know that essentially the personal representative is going to be a temporary license holder until the estate is disposed of, and at that time you'll see this come back to you when the license is transferred under the terms of the estate, whatever that may be. So again, we haven't had any issues there, but since you're likely to see something again in the future, wanted to bring this to your attention in case you had any concerns. It is my understanding, in meeting with the personal representative, she has 16 years of alcohol licensed establishment experience. There were no concerns or objections at license review to granting the renewal, but wanted to bring this to your attention since it is a somewhat unusual circumstance.
Questions for Mr. Hofer? I see none, and thank you. On a motion then by Councilmember Weld, seconded by Councilmember Klinkhammer, item 20 is moved to discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Wall.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 22, a resolution granting a Class B intoxicating liquor and fermented malt beverage and Class B cabaret license to the Fuji Steakhouse.
Yes.
Mr. Hofer.
This is a transfer from one corporate entity to another. Most of the principles are remaining the same. The principal on the entity applying for the surrender and transfer has been with Fuji for 16 years, as is the manager under its prior ownership as well. We haven't had any problems at that location, and there were no objections to granting the surrender and transfer. And the applicant is here if there are any additional questions.
Questions for Mr. Hofer or the applicant? Councilmember Mitchell?
Thank you. So this is then good for a year, right? This doesn't have to come up for renewal right away? I mean...
Correct.
Okay.
And I see no further question. On a motion then by Councilmember Von Hayden, seconded by Councilmember Mitchell. Item 21 is moved. Discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Wall.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye. And that resolution passes. Pardon me. Item 22 is a resolution authorizing Downtown Eau Claire, Inc. to conduct the first ever Family Day in downtown on July 8th in Phoenix Park. Mr. Quala.
Good evening.
Evening.
Mr. Pippinger couldn't be here tonight, so I'll stand in his place. The special event application before you is a new event, Family Day in Downtown. It's a free family-friendly event that will take place in Phoenix Park. The event will occur Saturday, July 18th from 2 p.m. to 11 and will most of the park will be included in this event, which will include music, food vendors, health and fitness area exhibitors, vendors, games, and outdoor activities. And a family movie will conclude the event near the point of the Chippewa and the Eau Claire rivers. This event will require City Council approval due to the expectation of more than 1,000 spectators and the event closing down the street. The Special Events Committee approved this event at their May 10th meeting, and Waterways and Park Commission recommended approval at their May 24th meeting. Kieran Hamill is here to answer any questions that you may have, as well as myself, if there's any questions on this particular event.
Thank you, Mr. Paula. Mr. Hamill, do you have other details to help fill in our excitement, I guess?
Sure. Really, in years past, Downtown Eau Claire Inc. has done a family night in downtown, much smaller setup, ending with a movie, starting around like 6 o'clock. We looked at that and saw that as a great opportunity to expand this into a much larger event, using all the facilities of the park, but then be able to expose the public to a lot more family resources and just really make it a big family fun event and showcase our downtown as a very family positive place to be. Really using all the spaces. City staff has been fantastic to work with to help coordinate this and get logistics down, and I'd welcome any questions.
Councilmember Strobel has a question.
Thank you. They're going to do the movie on the big screen again?
Yep, it's a 25-foot inflatable screen. It's been extremely popular. Unfortunately, July 8th is right in the middle of the summer, so it's going to start to be a little bit late. About 9:15 is when it'll get started. But we're hoping to have a lot of activities, so if people want to come earlier, they can stay later as well.
I remember when that first came to council, there was some concern about that, but I don't think we haven't had any problem from the neighbors or anybody on that, right?
Nope. And in fact, we stay in communication with the businesses in the North Barstow District, as well as the apartments and the residents there, make them aware that this is going to be going on, and that we are welcome to address any concerns that they have. But we have not received any concerns in the past.
What movie is playing?
The movie will be The Secret Life of Pets.
Okay.
We're happy to be coordinating this year with the Doll and Pet Parade, which will be continuing, and so good theme to continue that as well. That'll be taking place at 1 o'clock. This will be starting about 2 o'clock in the park. So.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Further questions? Thank you, Mr. Hamill, for your help this afternoon. And Mr. Quala, on a motion then by Councilmember Strobel, seconded by Councilmember Ruthman, item 22 is moved. Discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Aye.
Strobel?
Aye.
T-Wall?
Aye.
Von Hayden?
Aye.
Well?
Aye.
Workman?
Aye.
Beaton?
Aye.
Kincaid?
Aye.
Klinkhammer?
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 23 is a resolution accepting the donation of land adjacent to Mount Washington Park to extend a ski jump hill for the Flying Eagles Ski Club. Mr. Quala.
Good evening again.
Mm-hmm.
Before you is a resolution to accept a land donation from Mr. Dan Mattoon to the city of Eau Claire for the ski jumping hill at Mount Washington Park. The land donation is to expand the existing 40-meter ski jumping hill. And this is the aerial photo here. This particular donation of Mr. Mattoon would be represented by this 0.3 of an acre in this particular area. This area that's crossed hash is the current footprint of the Mount Washington's ski jumping area. This map just shows the land donation in particular in relation to the rest of the park. Again, it represents 0.3 of an acre of land that will be added to the existing parkland. Ski jumping in Eau Claire dates back to the 1890s and has a rich tradition of producing competitive athletes from Eau Claire on the national level. The Waterways and Park Commission recommended approval of this land donation at their May 24th meeting earlier this year. And if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer those. I don't believe Mr. Mattoon is here, but if there are questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Questions for Mr. Quala? I see none. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And then on a motion by Councilmember Beaton, seconded by Councilmember T-Walt, item 23 is moved. Discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden, Wells,
Aye.
Workman,
Aye.
Eaton,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 24 is a related item with a resolution approving an amendment to the lease agreement with the Flying Eagles Ski Club for the property we just mentioned.
Correct. Perhaps I just should have left a chair up here for myself tonight. Essentially, this is an amendment to the existing lease agreement that the city has with the Flying Eagle Ski Club. The amendment that would change the existing agreement would basically be the legal description, which would encompass the 3/10 of an acre that are being added as parkland. Otherwise, there's been really nothing changed in the language of the overall lease agreement.
Any questions about lease agreement? I see none, Mr. Qualla. And on a motion then by Councilmember T-Walt, T-Walt? No, Councilmember Weld, sorry, seconded by Councilmember Klinkhammer. Item 24 is moved. Discussion? Councilmember Beaton.
I just wanted to add really quick, we talked about this in the Waterways and Parks Commission meeting, and I don't know too much about ski jumping, but and correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that this new development is going to make our city a leader in youth ski jumping and learning, helping children and youth learn how to ski jump and hopefully get to the Olympics and do great things. So I thought that was pretty cool. So.
Actually, there's some youngsters in Eau Claire that I would not be surprised if we see them on the Olympic team in the next few years.
Thank you for that input. Let's see, did I move this? Okay. There being no further discussion, then clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Wells,
Aye. Aye.
Eaton,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 25 is a resolution authorizing the Regional Hazardous Materials Response System Service Contract with the state of Wisconsin and a labor agreement for hazardous materials response team with firefighter local 487. Chief Bell.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I know you have a busy night, so I will just keep it brief to just one picture. Unless you want more, I have more to share. What we have in front of you is a contract with the state. We are one of two teams that provide Type 1 hazardous materials, and there are additional teams that provide service. We have a joint team with Chippewa Falls. We've been doing this since 1994, so 23 plus years. This is an additional 2-year contract. Everything stays the same except the dates. We have 40 total team members, I believe 28 from Eau Claire and 12 from Chippewa Falls. We work together as a joint team. We have a separate joint powers agreement that we enter into at the same time, along with an agreement with the local, just laying out the details of compensation and liability responsibility. I can go in greater detail if you wish. I know it's busy.
Sometimes, I think we only see these renewed every 5 or 6 years, did you say?
Every 2 years.
2 years. Sometimes just a really brief overview of what is a hazardous response and.
Perfect, and I can do that. And I brought some brief, just pictures worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
And so to give you a quick scenario, these are some of the things that we respond to. Everything that travels over the interstate, everything that travels over rail, everything that we work in the industrial. If we have a hazardous materials response team or incident, we'll have local teams, local jurisdictions such as Menominee, Rice Lake are Type 2 teams. We're Type 1, so we respond to all the lower degree ones, but also the high-end radiological, nuclear, which you can find in hospitals, and they're also, all that material is transported over the highway system. So everything that you drive by when you're driving on the interstate, if it's involved in an accident and it leaks, we're called. Someone has to come and deal with that material. Now, we will mitigate it. We will stop it from leaking. We don't clean it up. There's private companies such as Waste Research here in town that deals with the cleanup and over the rail, even the rail cars can have leaks. Now, if we recall back in 2007, not to highlight it too much, but the company that does the cleanup had their own incident, and we were called to that. And so that's what we respond to. And that's what it looked like when it was done. Everything to what we find just in LP gas, which is throughout the city and throughout the county and the region. And even, and I'm not the expert on all the hazards here at our own waste treatment plant, but we've had fires there, and they do have their own methane that they produce and other issues that we would respond. And lastly, and probably least, but we do have chemical and biological issues that we may be called to deal with. And we have, I believe, 11 specialists, both in radiological and biological. So we go out to either Nevada or down in Anniston, and we do advanced training. Myself, I've been to the radiological training down in Nevada. You go for a week, you're down at ground zero where they did the Apple test. You're literally standing ground zero where they did the Apple test back in the day. So historically, it's great, but it's more than just going for show and tell. They teach you how to deal with all the everything from the material that are in the X-ray machines that gets transported over the highway. So as simple as that to the advanced stuff. Any further questions?
Sometimes there are. No. Councilmember Beaton?
Thank you, yeah. So you said that we are a class 1, you said, or a
Type 1.
Type 1. What is our jurisdiction? What kind of area do we cover?
We cover the northwestern part of Wisconsin. Milwaukee covers the southern part. Madison is in there, but they're not a Type 1, even though they have a substantial region that they cover. An example would be, so this is the west central region. So we cover everything up to Superior, Ashland, down to La Crosse for Type 1. But La Crosse in itself is a Type 2 team, and they're a good resource. They're very capable of handling, pretty much everything that gets thrown at them. And oftentimes you won't see them call us just because they're so capable. Menominee, Superior, and Ashland, they'll utilize us as a resource. I believe they just had an incident here that washed ashore this past last fall. We were on the phone with Superior all day long, along with the Coast Guard, dealing with that issue. So if we don't go in person, then we're on the phone as a resource for that team. Just like the 54th CST, Civil Support Team, through the National Guard, they're a resource for us. And oftentimes we're calling down to the state's transferring us over to the 54th, the military division, and they're working with us as a resource to deal with any emergencies that we have. And this is a breakout of what how the regions are throughout the state.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Thank you. Are you informed of what is transported through the city by rail?
Yes and no. To some degree, I could be if I chose to, except it's too much to keep track of. We just respond to emergencies as they come. And when I say yes and no, we do have the ability to find in bulk, for example, when certain types of crude oil were being transported, different viscosities in the different types of rail cars that were used to transport them, the rail companies make us aware of that. They also allow us to prescribe to an app that we can look and see which rail cars, which transport areas are traveling with what type of products. And they only give that to emergency responders. It's not for the general public. So we have abilities in some cases. It's just, it's a lot. It's too much for me to process. It's too much for our team to process, and we have a general idea, but it's more so we have systems in place with placards, DOT, everything that goes with the reporting, so we know what we're coming up on through the various mechanisms that they have in place. So it isn't always just an unknown. We have the ability to pull out our DOT guidebooks, look at the placards, identify what it is, or if it's a semi, for example, they have transport papers that we can identify. And most often, say for a driver of a semi that's involved in an accident, if they have the ability to walk away from that, one of the first things they're trained to deal with is grab the paperwork as they exit the vehicle. So it just makes it a lot easier for everyone.
Well, thank you, Chief. It's helpful for us to always be reminded about the depth and the complexity of public services, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no further questions then on a motion by Councilmember Von Hayden, seconded by Councilmember Mitchell, item 25 is moved. Further discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Von Hayden.
Aye.
Wells.
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
Eaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Clickhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Wall.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 26 is a resolution indicating receipt and review of the 2016 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report for the wastewater treatment plant. Mr. Berg, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so this agenda item is a resolution indicating receipt and review of the 2016 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report, otherwise known as CMAR, for the wastewater treatment plant and collection system. The CMAR evaluates the wastewater treatment plant and collection system as required by the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Grades of A through F are assigned to different areas of the plant and collection system operations. The overall grade for the Eau Claire wastewater system was 4.0 out of a 4.0 scale, so we got a perfect score. The Department of Natural Resources does not require any action on any maintenance activities unless the grade point average is less than 3.0, so we don't have to worry about that. The employees and operators at the wastewater treatment plant and wastewater collection systems are responsible for this excellent rating and are to be commended for achieving compliance with the discharge permit limits. I would also like to thank the council and city staff who made the wastewater treatment plant renovation a reality. The plant is running beautifully and should serve us long into the future. I do want to also give a special shout out to Steve Hayden, our former utilities engineer. He's now retired, but he poured his heart and soul into that project, and we're certainly enjoying the fruits of his labor now. And if anybody would like to see the plant again, post-construction, you're certainly more than welcome. We'd love to give you a tour. And I can assure you our effluent water that enters the Chippewa River is as clear as drinking water. You would swear it's a glass of drinking water when you look at it. So, our investment, our investment was certainly worth it. Our suspended solids that enter the river are just absolutely minimal. We removed about 99% of the suspended solids, and the plant is functioning beautifully. A couple hiccups along the way, but that's to be expected on a $40 million project, but it's really been a great asset to the city of Eau Claire. The Department of Natural Resources requires the City Council to adopt a resolution indicating receipt and review of the report, and that's why it's before you tonight. So if you have any questions, I'd certainly attempt to answer them.
Questions for Mr. Berg? Thank you. We did get a chance to hear about the high points of the report also during our CIP, our Capital Improvement Plan meeting. And the council thanks the diligence of our city engineer and staff. City engineer is not the right title, but I can't think of it right now. But your entire staff. A thing for me that's important is to emphasize that we're just a practical and reliable people. We don't draw a lot of attention to ourselves, but we just upgraded our wastewater treatment plant to the tune of $40 million, significantly improving our effluent and our discharge. And we did that by partly by anticipating the cost, raising rates slowly over time, so the taxpayer didn't have a huge one-time impact. And so we not only think about our environmental responsibility, we think about a fiscal responsibility in regards to taking care of this earth that we all share. So
it's certainly paying off now.
It certainly is. And we're just a reliable and practical people. So thank you for your part in that.
Yep, thank you.
Let's see. On a motion then by Councilmember Strobel, seconded by Councilmember Worthman. Item 26 is moved. Discussion. Discussion or speeches are allowed. There being none, clerk, please call the roll. Oh, a speech. Mr. T-Walk.
Four score and seven, no, wrong one. I want to say we got to tour that last year, I believe it was, and excellent facility, the engineering, the discipline, the workers, it was just fascinating. I also had used that years ago with an RV, and you would, there's a facility to dump, and you would pick up the aroma of the area. And that was due to an inefficient process years ago, and that is gone. That is a state-of-the-art, top facility, as your scores indicate. So thank you so much for that excellent work. I found it fascinating.
Thank you, Councilmember T-Walt. There being no further discussion, then clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Weld,
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Eaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Walt.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 27 is a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between the city and Eau Claire Babe Ruth Inc. in regards to an expansion and renovation of Mount Simon baseball facilities. Mr. Quala.
There we go. Before you is a memorandum of understanding between the City of Eau Claire and Babe Ruth Incorporated. This MOU is for the Eau Claire Babe Ruth to fundraise for the construction of a batting cage concession building with restrooms at Mount Simon Baseball Park. The allergies, I'm sorry, losing my voice. The Eau Claire Babe Ruth will be required to fundraise the entire cost of the project, which is estimated at about $200,000 at this time, in cash before the city will commence with any construction. Thank you. Of the project. The memo of understanding includes responsibilities of the city and the Eau Claire Babe Ruth Incorporated capital campaign in terms of the agreement. The Department of Community Services staff finds that this partnership will be beneficial to the parties by expanding the existing Mount Simon baseball park facilities and provide new features and assets to the community as a whole. The Waterways and Park Commission recommended approval of this MOU at their May 24th meeting. I believe Mr. Nate Kilness is here, but I thought he was to be here, but he's not tonight. But he could explain a little bit more about the project, but I can as well. This is basically the outline or the footprint of the proposed structure. It'll include batting cages and locker concession area here and restrooms, and it's overshadowed. You can see the existing facility we have right now. It's considerably larger, but it'll be a year-round facility. I'm made aware of that too. So it'll allow for baseball teams and coaches to really get a jump start on the season for sure. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
And I see no questions, and thank you, Mr. Quala.
Thank you.
On a motion then by Councilmember Beaton, seconded by Councilmember T-Walt. Item 27 is moved. Discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Workman.
Aye.
Eaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Walt.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 28 is a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between the city and the United Way of Greater Chippewa Valley in regards to the installation of a Born Learning Trail, B-O-R-N, Born Learning Trail in Lakeshore Park. Mr. Quala.
Before you, the MOU before you is between the City of Eau Claire and the United Way of the Greater Chippewa Valley. This MOU is for the United Way of the Greater Chippewa Valley to fundraise for the construction of a Born Learning Trail at the Lakeshore Park area. The project will provide quality learning opportunities for young children. The United Way of the Greater Chippewa Valley will fundraise for the entire cost of the project, which is estimated at about $2,500. And the city will assist with the construction of the project once those funds are raised. The MOU includes responsibilities of the city and the United Way of the Greater Chippewa Valley capital campaign in terms of the agreement. The Community Services staff finds that this partnership will be beneficial to the parties as a whole by creating a new amenity within Lakeshore Park. The Waterways and Park Commission approved of this agreement on their May 24th meeting, and Ms. Carrie Strode is here to answer any questions that you may have as well, or she can highlight the project a little better than I perhaps. The area in question, come on, Carrie. The area we're intending to locate the trail is at the junction of this intersection and the intersection here at Lakeshore Park. You can see the shelter here. And along this stretch, there'll be a series of stations. And Carrie can highlight you as to what some of those stations might include.
Thank you very much. There will be 9 altogether, 9 stations, as well as a welcome to the trail. We currently, I was sharing, one is being installed as we speak in Fairchild. So Catherine Cooper, who has been really doing a lot of the background of this, she is out there with our Emerging Leaders group doing an installation as we speak. But you can see the signage, there's signs, and it really is making some suggestions for parents or guardians or caregivers, older children to do with younger children. There's a few items that will be added to the sidewalk. There's a hopscotch, there's some shapes, there's some letters. So we have some stencils that will be included. And we have our first official groupie who's now going out to visit every single Born Learning Trail. We're in the process of installing 12 across the Chippewa Valley.
Question, we have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Councilmember Beaton.
Thank you. In the Waterways and Parks Commission meeting, we talked a little bit about the potential opportunity to offer these signs in different languages. Has that been something that has further considerations?
Yes, they are available in Spanish. That would be the other language that's available at this time. And I can certainly take back to Kathy to see if we might be able to add that piece.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
To the trail.
Mm-hmm.
And I see no other questions, so thank you for informing us about your project.
Sure, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And on a motion then by Councilmember Weld, seconded by Councilmember Klinkhammer, item 28 is moved. Discussion? There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Wall.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Wells.
Aye.
Worthington.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 28 is a resolution approving an intergovernmental cooperative agreement between the City of Eau Claire and Eau Claire County for construction on Prill Road. Mr. Sober.
Good evening.
Evening.
Or afternoon, actually. Earlier this year, the City Council approved a project as part of the city's CIP program to extend, do pavement repairs as well as extend sidewalk along Prill Road to Gateway Drive, and then a short extension up to this intersection to the north. Along with that project, Prill Road is the jurisdiction of Eau Claire County, so the pavement for that project was included in the city project. The city was acting as a lead agency for it and conducted the bids and performed the design for it, and will also perform construction inspection. The resolution before you authorizes the city manager to enter into the cooperative agreement with the City of Eau Claire and Eau Claire County for them to pay for their portion of the project, which in essence is the portion of the project related to the paving surface, which is milling and asphaltic pavement and pavement marking. And the City of Eau Claire is responsible for the extension of the pedestrian facilities and accommodations on the traffic signals that are required for our pedestrian extension. With that, I will take any questions.
Questions about this project? Councilmember Klinkhammer.
Just out of curiosity, do you have a date yet as to when this project is going to occur?
As of last week, it looks like construction will start in the August timeframe for this portion. A lot of the work will be done at night on the actual driving surface in conjunction with the work that the DOT will be doing over the Gulf Road interchange itself. The DOT is responsible for approximately this location over to the east to where the concrete pavement ends. So it shouldn't be too terribly impactful for our traffic.
And I see no further questions, and thank you. On a motion then by Councilmember Von Hayden, seconded by Councilmember Mitchell, item 29 is moved. Any discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Wall,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Wells,
Aye.
Workman,
Aye.
Eaton.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 30 is a resolution approving appointments to various boards, committees, and commissions. On the recommendation of the Appointments Committee, the following appointments are read into the record for your consideration. To the Administrative Review Board, Aaron Brewster, an appointment to expire in 2019, and Mildred Larson, a reappointment to expire in 2019. To the Board of Heating Examiners, David Davis, a reappointment to expire in 2019, and Stephen Fox, a reappointment to expire in 2019. To the Library Board, Nancy Lynch, a new appointment to expire in 2020. To the Revolving Loan Fund Committee, Maria DaCosta and William Ogden, terms to expire in 2020. And to the Transit Commission, Elizabeth Sullivan, an appointment to expire in 2020, Bob Schroffenagel and Joshua Clements, 2 reappointments to expire in 2020. Mr. Clements is the Altoona representative. And lastly, to the Waterways and Parks Commission, Megan Kramer, a new appointment to fill an unexpired 3-year term to expire in 2019. Council members have questions regarding any of these recommendations? There being none, on a motion by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Strobel, item 30 is moved and discussion is in order. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Wall,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Wells,
Aye.
Workman,
Aye.
Eaton,
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye, and that resolution passes. Item 31 is a resolution approving the annual work plan for the Advisory Committee on Appointments. Mr. Peters.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Afternoon.
Last year, the work of the Advisory Committee of Appointments looked at the roles and responsibilities of boards and commissions, and one of the tasks that came out of that is that we now ask committees, advisory committees, to do a annual work plan, and what is before you tonight is the proposed annual work plan for the Advisory Committee of Appointments. It has 3 categories, one with education and promotional. There are 2 tasks for that. One is to recruit candidates and do some long-term planning for vacancies. And the second educational component would be to provide some training to the board and commission chairs and vice chairs. In terms of ongoing work, they will bring forward appointments and reappointments to various boards and commissions, as you just saw in your previous agenda item. And then they're looking at doing 2 projects this next year. The first is to look at developing their own mission statement, and then secondly, to host the annual volunteer appreciation breakfast. I would certainly entertain any questions that you might have. And of course, the chair of the advisory committee is here with Councilmember Mitchell.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yeah. These changes all look really good. This is the first work plan, right?
This is the first work plan for
Okay.
this advisory committee, yes.
And can you, so I noticed at least, sorry, can I have a follow-up? Okay. I see at least one recurring project, the volunteer appreciation event, but are there any new things that are happening in this work plan?
Excuse me?
Things that are happening that weren't happening before?
So the new things are certainly the training. We're putting together a training program for the chairs and vice chairs of each and of all of the boards and commissions. So that is a new thing, and then also working on the mission statement. And then I believe that there are going to be some efforts and some new ideas coming forward for recruiting candidates and that long-term planning for vacancies.
Councilmember Worthman.
Thank you, Council President. What is the city ordinance section 2.04.050?
That is the ordinance as it relates to boards and commissions, if I recall right. Maybe I could have some help from the chair.
It's the ordinance. It's where the committee is referenced and says that that appointments will be recommended by this committee. And I think it was also the ordinance that removed the city manager from membership on the committee a few years ago. Otherwise, it doesn't really have an ordinance the way others do.
Can I ask a follow-up? Could I ask a follow-up? Is that, so is that a work plan item to change the language or to look at changing the language, or just
No.
that's what gives the committee
It
its
is to
charge?
the extent that there's authorizing legislation to have an advisory committee on appointments. They will look to that in terms of drafting a mission statement, but I don't believe
see.
there's any look at changing the ordinance itself.
I see, thanks.
Part of that is that if you looked at the other work plans for advisory commissions on appointments, they've stated a mission statement here, and this particular committee didn't have a mission statement, so they would like to work on that.
Okay. Thank you. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for your work, Committee Chair. And a motion then by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Worthman. Item 31 is moved. Discussion? There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Wall,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Clinkhammer.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. We move into a series of land use, I guess, resolutions, beginning with item 32, which is a resolution approving the final plat for Westover Woods. Mr. Tufti.
This is the property. It's located off Westover at State Street. And there is the final plat. It creates 7 lots for single-family development. They have provided the utility easements requested. The final plat is consistent with the preliminary plat reviewed by Plan Commission, and the Plan Commission has recommended approval.
Questions for Mr. Tufti? See none. A motion by Councilmember T-Walt, seconded by Councilmember Weld. Item 32 is moved. Any discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strobel,
Aye.
T-Wall,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Clinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
That resolution passes. Item 33 is a related resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a development agreement with Westover Holdings for improvements within the plat. And also item 34, are you going to talk about both?
I would like to, yes.
Item 34 indicates location of sidewalks within the plat of Westover Woods. Mr. Jensko.
Okay, well, this is the development agreement to go along with the plat that Daryl just presented to you. It's a pretty basic one. It has special conditions for financing. The estimated cost of the project is $118,295. It's got construction, inspection, and review fees, responsibilities for those. The street and utility portion along State Street will be conducted as part of the city CIP project that you had the assessment hearing for earlier this year. And so that'll be done by the city, and the developer will be doing this portion, and then the private utilities that'll service these lots as well. The development agreement also has a map that shows where sidewalks are required per the ordinance that we have, and it shows where the existing sidewalk is out there now. There has been a written request from the developer, which is the second item, which is asking for deferral of sidewalk along State Street and along the cul-de-sac, the 200-foot cul-de-sac. So the resolution for that also includes language that says that the council can revisit the deferral at any time that a sidewalk or any kind of construction project is being proposed for either the cul-de-sac or for State Street.
Thank you, Mr. Jensko. Councilmember Mitchell?
Thank you. Is there anything in the ordinance about sidewalk deferral that relates to the length of a cul-de-sac?
There used to be, and actually it still applies to city projects. And 750 foot was one of the several criteria that could be used. In 2002, when the sidewalk ordinances were changed, it then required sidewalk for all new development unless the developer requested it in writing, and then it had two criteria. One is topography, and then the other is if the council finds that it's not in the public interest is the word that I remember. I think the language is just a little bit different than that, but that's what changed in 2002.
Any further questions? Councilmember Strobel.
Thank you, Mr. Junsko. Is there a reason there wasn't suggested sidewalk on the corner there of Westover and State on that lot right there?
This particular lot is not in the city limits. It's still out in the town.
So there's no sidewalk there, even though it's in the township, there's nothing?
That there's no currently sidewalk there, and we'd be hard pressed to push sidewalk adjacent to a parcel in the town as well. There are some places where that happens, but usually it happens because it happens, not because the city requires it.
And a follow-up, if I might. And so then the developer's asking for a deferral on, I believe you said the side over on State Street?
Yes.
Is that until those lots are developed, or is that?
Well, typically a deferral like that would be until such time as a street like State Street gets reconstructed with curb and gutter and sidewalk in the full urban section. Right now, it's an asphalt mat. It's a little wider than a normal county road. It's got shoulders that are striped for pedestrians. And so there is a pedestrian network along State Street, but it's just a paved shoulder on the highway, on the county highway.
Thank you.
And I see no further questions. Thank you again, Mr. Jensko. We'll take the resolution separately, beginning with 33, on a motion by Councilmember Klinkhammer, seconded by Councilmember Von Hayden. Discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember T-Wall,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Wells,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Beaton,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
That resolution passes. Item 34 is the resolution indicating sidewalk. In this case, the resolution does state a deferral. So passing the resolution defers sidewalk as written. On a motion by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Strobel. Item 34 is moved. Discussion. And there being, Councilmember Mitchell.
Well, I can understand deferring sidewalks on State Street, but I'm inclined to not defer them on the cul-de-sac. But I would be interested if anyone else has an opinion.
If you made a motion, I'd probably second to amend.
Councilmember Mitchell.
I'm not sure how to do this, so I'll try it, though. I don't know how to say it. I would like to amend the motion to not defer sidewalks on the cul-de-sac.
If I may make a suggestion, you might say that where it says in about the second line where sidewalks are deferred as shown on the exhibit attached to here too, just indicate sidewalks are deferred along State Street and just leave it at that.
Okay. That's right with me.
Second it.
Sidewalks are deferred along State Street. Is that okay with you, Madam City Clerk? Got that? Okay. Does everyone understand the motion to amend? Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed. The resolution is amended as ordered. We're back to the resolution as moved. Further discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Von Hayden,
Aye.
Wells,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Beaton,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Clinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Wall.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 35 is a resolution approving the final plat of Hoyam Acres, 7th edition. Mr. Tufti.
This property is located off of West Frank Street and Preston Road, and this is the last of the Hoyam development. This is actually the original farmstead. And this is the final plat, again, Preston and West Frank, and it does extend the street then into the property. This plat creates 14 lots for single-family development, and then one more lot around the existing home on the property. Outlot 14 is dedicated to the city for stormwater purposes. Outlot 13 is to be owned by an abutting, which would be the property immediately to the west, and that's to provide a proper setback for that existing home from the new street. It'll become a corner lot. The street name is shown as South Hoyam. Plan Commission recommended that be changed to simply Hoyam Lane, simply because it aligns with existing Hoyam Lane immediately to the north. The utility easements are indicated on the final plat, and the Plan Commission recommended approval with the change in the street name to Hoyam Lane.
Questions, anybody? I see none. And on a motion by Councilmember Worthman, seconded by Councilmember Beaton, item 35 is moved. Discussion? Councilmember Weld? Is that a question? Okay. There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Wells,
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Clinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Wall,
Aye.
Hayden.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 36 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a development agreement with the Hoyam Family Partnership for street and utility improvements. Mr. Jensko.
And with your indulgence, if I could do the sidewalk resolution right
Oh.
after that as well.
I just saw that, yep.
Well, this is the development agreement that goes along with the plat that Darrell just presented. It has special conditions for financing. In this case, the financial guarantee would be $296,000.70, and it has requirements for construction inspection and review fees. There is one difference to it, though, in that in this case, the developer is going to do the work along County T, and they need to extend the water line a certain distance to serve the lots within their plat. Currently, the city water system comes along Frank Street and then up Preston Road, and it comes up Preston Road to about the south end. And so there's a reimbursement to the developer to connect the loop that he wouldn't normally have had to build as part of his. And there are also some reimbursement items for extending some utility services off to the east to serve lots that are not part of his development. The purpose for that is to get the services out from underneath the pavement so that if they do annex and get service, we don't have to tear up the street to provide the services. Those two reimbursements combined come to about $10,000. The development agreement also includes a map showing where sidewalk would be required per our ordinance. The developer has requested deferral of sidewalk along Preston Road. The difference between this one and the other project is Preston Road looks more like a town road than a county highway, although it is a county right-of-way. But there is substantial development, existing development already along Preston Road, and there is no other sidewalk. There's no curb and gutter, none of that on Preston Road. So that's the reason for the request for deferral along Preston Road. Again, it has the same language that allows you to reconsider the deferral or review the deferral at any time and then rescind the deferral.
Questions for Mr. Jensko? Questions? I see none. On a motion then by, yeah, is that where I am? Yeah. A motion by Councilmember T-Walt, seconded by Councilmember Weld. Item 36 is moved. Discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Worthman.
Aye.
Eaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Clinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
Tebow.
Aye.
Arnheim.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 37 is that the resolution indicating location of required sidewalk, but it has deferral language as mentioned by Mr. Jensko. So a vote in the affirmative defers sidewalks along Preston Road. And on a motion by Councilmember Klinkhammer, seconded by Councilmember Von Hayden, item 37 is moved. Discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Clinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
Tebow.
Aye.
Arnheim.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Worthman.
And that resolution passes. Next, we have a resolution authorizing the sale of lots 6 and 7 of the Stotts County Addition located at 1929 Gooder Street. I think that's the right way to say this.
It is.
Ms. Basom.
Thank you. Before you is the resolution to authorize the sale of property, 2 vacant lots on 1929 Gooder Street. There was a request for proposal sent out in March for the development of those vacant lots. The lots are on the northeast part of the community, just north of the North Crossing and just west of 53. And this is a better view of the lots that we're talking about. Let's see. Gooder Street has not yet been extended in front of the parcels, nor has the sewer or water services. The city purchased the property for $1 back in 1984. The city assessor estimated that the lots had a fair market value of about $64,000 for both lots, with the assumption that the streets and utilities had been completed. One proposal was returned when the request was submitted from the Riverbend Rentals and Property Management. The proposal for offer was for $100 plus the payment for the deferred special assessments and the necessity for the soft and hard costs of the extended street utilities. And with that, I can answer questions. And this is related to the next agenda item. It's with the developer agreement. One can't happen without the other.
Questions for Ms. Basom? Councilmember T-Walt.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about the development of those lots? Currently, that area is used by the city, I think, for some gravel and sand we put there. Then there's a large water system that handles all the runoff from the Princeton Valley area and piping, and I'm wondering if those collide in there, are those buildable before we invest, or?
The lot 8 we're going to retain, and that's where all the drainage
Okay.
goes into, so we're keeping the lot that we need for that purpose. So we're only looking at selling these 2 lots up here that can be developed
And
on.
you're familiar with what I'm talking about, where the city trucks are using that area?
I don't know about that part, but maybe John would know.
I live on Wilden Street. It's a popular street, 2 blocks long, so I know this geography well.
You kind of have to want to be there to be on that street.
We get little doodles on our UPS boxes, how to get to Wilden.
Yeah, a little embellishment on what Christine told you before. Before, all of the Princeton Valley drainage came down through the back into a larger area. That's how the city ended up using that. When the drainage system in Highway 53 was constructed, we were able to bring up a pipe that came up to serve Princeton Valley, and so this was able to become a whole lot smaller, which made the 2 northerly lots available. Because they've been filled and ready for development, the city does use that for street sweepings and snow storage from time to time, but those operations will just get moved to some other location.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Strobel.
Thank you. I have a question. Is it, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Basom?
Basom, yep.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me a little bit about the market value of $64,000 and the purchase price of $100?
Yeah, the $64,000 was the fair market value that the assessors had given, but that is with the street being reconstructed and the utilities being put in. At the time the proposal was submitted, it was estimated about $54-ish thousand to complete those tasks. The proposal that was submitted was for the $100 plus the deferred specials.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Van Hagen?
And as I'm understanding correctly, you said then the 54,000, if that is what the costs are to do that, would be paid by the lot owners?
Correct.
Assessed to them, the
Correct.
full amount?
Yep, they have to construct the street and the utilities.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Worthman?
Thank you, Council President. Ms. Basom, can you just talk a little bit about the history on this piece and the decision to decide that this was going to be sold?
Well, all vacant property goes through our vacant land process. We send it out to all other department heads to see if there's any need for the property or not. This property was decided that there was no need left for it, so we sent it out for proposal.
Okay, thank you. Oh, can I ask a follow-up? Is there, I'm looking at this and I see in the backyard there's a garden. Well, maybe it's Councilmember T-Walt's garden, but yeah, is there other kinds of land uses that could have been considered for this, whether it's green space or garden space or other things? How is that process decided?
Typically, during the review of the department heads, those items are considered at that point if there's a need for a green space or anything of that nature.
And can I ask a third follow-up? The neighbors have been pretty supportive of this idea, as far as you know?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Thanks.
The
Councilmember
microphone was not on for that comment, nor is it official or accepted.
I'm not sure if this is a fair question for you, but does the city ever consider then finishing out Gooder Street down to the highway?
That would probably be for one of the engineers. I don't know.
I'll take a shot at that since I've been working with Christine a little bit more at that. The answer is no. It kind of came to a dead end. It didn't come all the way through when the North Crossing came through here, and that actually shortened the right-of-way up. The only reason to extend it would be these larger parcels on the west side, which are actually out in the town of Seymour, they're not within the city, or these two lots here, which are deep double lots, but also very narrow. And this particular individual actually owns both of them. And so the only thing that would drive the extension of this road, other than this development, is if someday this person wants to subdivide these lots and put two lots in the back, or this individual were to annex and then want to subdivide those lots. But we wouldn't build a road just on the thought that maybe someday they might want to do that. And so, no, we really haven't thought about extending it, but this provides an opportunity to at least get it this far, to make that option maybe something these folks might think about at some time.
Thank you. And I see no further questions, I guess. On a motion then by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Strobel, item 38 is moved. Discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kincaid?
Aye.
Klinkhammer?
Aye.
Mitchell?
Aye.
Strobel?
Aye.
T-Wall?
Aye.
Von Hayden?
Aye.
Wells?
Aye.
Worthman?
Aye.
Beatty?
Aye.
And that resolution passes. As Mr. Jensko said, the related resolution is the next item, authorizing the city manager to enter into a development agreement with Aspen Rising for street and utility improvements on Gooder Street.
Well, this is the development agreement for the sale that Christine was just talking about. And just to further supplement that a little bit, if you go to page 303 of your council packet, there's the cost estimate, which substantiates the number she was talking about, the construction costs. These are our estimates, and we tend to inflate them a little bit just to make sure that we're covered, so that if we have to pick up the project, we actually do have the money to build it. Often developers will get prices less than what we pay. Part of the reason for it is what you see here on this aerial, is that they get to work out in raw ground where there isn't traffic and there isn't other utilities that they have to fight around. When we do our projects, typically our bid prices are on city streets where there are residents that want to get in and out and all sorts of things that the contractors have to deal with. So that's where that cost comes, and that's why this financial guarantee is about $74,000 as opposed to the $54,000 that she was talking about in the cost to extend the utilities. And in this case, it's the developer extending the utilities in the road. There is no reimbursement clause because he's worked that into the sales price. There still will be connection fees if other properties connect to it. We do have a reimbursement to the developer, though, for extending one set of utilities. His project's only going to come partway down. The corner lot's already got services stubbed into it, so there'd only be one other couplet of services. And so there's a reimbursement of about $1,800 to cover the cost of getting those utilities under the pavement that he's going to build. He has not requested sidewalk deferral, so there's not the second resolution for that.
Question, Councilmember Von Hayden.
Is this being built in such a manner that if those lower lots would develop, that it can be easily connected to what he's doing? In other words, the sewer and water that's being put in, they would be able to get to make the final connections on that?
They will be stubbed as far as his property, and the curb and gutter will come as far as his property. We're not proposing a concrete curb and gutter cul-de-sac. We're proposing a temporary mat, asphalt mat for the cul-de-sac for just that reason, so that if the road does get extended, you're not going to tear out a permanent cul-de-sac and all that right away. The water line would have to be extended down to provide service. The sewer's already there.
But it's being built in such a manner that can be easily hooked into?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jensko. I see no further questions. And on a motion then by Councilmember Worthman, seconded by Councilmember Beaton, item 39 is moved. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Clickhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Wall.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Well.
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye. Aye. And that resolution passes. We end our business agenda with two resolutions. The first being a resolution approving the final condominium plat for Haymarket Landing condominiums. Mr. Tufti.
In your packet is the Haymarket Landing condominium documents. This is the property at Eau Claire Street and Barstow, the new building that has been completed on the site. This condo plat creates 9 commercial units and then 1 residential unit, and they basically match the existing use of the building. The basement parking level is actually tied into the residential units within the building, which are floors 2 through 6. The condo plat allows then the residential portion and then the 9 commercial spaces within the building to be sold separately. The condominium declarations have been reviewed and approved by the City Attorney's Office, and the Plan Commission has recommended approval.
Questions? Councilmember Stroll.
I have a question. By putting this in condos and separating off ownership, will it affect the development agreement that we had with Haymarket Landing on this particular project at all?
No.
Okay.
And I see no further questions. On a motion then by Oh, Mr. Osborne. A lengthy answer, I guess. A more lengthy answer.
I'm Randy Osberg. I'm an attorney at Reuter Ware representing Haymarket Concepts, and the development agreement has a covenant in it so that it can't be transferred to tax-exempt entities. As to the unit that's going to be retained by Haymarket, the covenant stays in place. As to the unit being transferred to Marcom, the other developer or other partner in Haymarket, it'll be subject to that covenant. So The deal's the deal.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. I think I was motioning this. Councilmember T-Walt, seconded by Councilmember Weld. Discussion on the condominium plat. There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Walt.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Clinkhammer.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. And finally, a resolution approving a final condominium plat at 322 Water Street condominiums. Mr. Tufti.
And again, within your packet are the condominium documents for 222 Water Street condominium, property on Water Street at 3rd, and this is the 4-story structure that's under construction at the site. Again, the condominium plat in this case creates 2 units and allows then the sale of the residential portion of the property to a separate property owner. Unit 1 is essentially most of the commercial space on the main floor. Unit 2 is, again, the basement parking, a portion of the main floor, and then the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floors, which are the residential aspects of the building. The surface parking lots, which will be developed on both sides of the building, are tied to Unit 1, and the parking lot across the alley to the north is identified as common space, meaning both aspects of the condominium can use it for parking. The condominium declarations have been reviewed and approved by the City Attorney's Office, and the Plan Commission has recommended approval.
Questions for Mr. Tufti? Councilmember Strobel.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tufti. Again, same sort of question, only I don't think we have a development agreement on this particular property. So does, by us approving this at this time, does it maybe allow for part of the condominium to be sold to a nonprofit or someplace? Is there anything that the council can do to sort of look at that situation as far as collecting property taxes on both of the condo units?
I'll defer to Steve on that one.
Mr. Nick?
The condominium agreement simply creates the lots and the units. It's not a tax issue, and there's no element of that now. Again, this development is not subject to any development agreement or a deed restriction as the prior one was in terms of transfer to a tax-exempt entity, although for residential uses, the ability to use it, it has to be not only owned, but used exclusively for tax-exempt purposes. I can't speculate as to what that use might be, but just because it's owned by a tax-exempt entity doesn't mean that the property will be tax-exempt.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Tufti. A motion then by Councilmember Klinkhammer, second by Councilmember Von Hayden. Item 41 is moved. Discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strobel.
Aye.
T-Walt.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Clinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. We have 5 ordinances for action tonight, beginning with item 42, an ordinance rezoning property located at 3622 Session Street. Does anyone have questions from our presentation last evening? On a motion then by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Strobel, item 42 is moved. Discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember T-Walt.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Clinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
And that ordinance is adopted. Item 43 is an ordinance rezoning property at Mount Washington Ski Jumping Hill and to adopt a site plan. Questions from last evening? On a motion then by Councilmember Worthman, seconded by Councilmember Beaton, item 43 is moved and discussion is in order. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Von Hayden.
Aye.
Wells.
Aye.
Worthman. Aye. Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Clickhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Wall.
Aye.
And that ordinance is adopted. Item 44 is an ordinance rezoning property on the west side of North Claremont and to adopt a general development plan for the Hope Gospel Missions Men's Facility. Questions on this project? On a motion then by Councilmember T-Walt, seconded by Councilmember Weld, item 44 is moved and discussion is in order. Councilmember Strobel.
Thank you. I supported the move and the plan the last time through, but I guess one of my main concerns was how that facility was sited on the property, and I was hoping that that other lot might become available and that they could change the siting. So I really like the change and the way the building sits on the site now much better, so I think it's a big improvement.
Thank you. There being no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Wells.
Aye.
Worthman. Aye. Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Clickhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Wall.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
And that ordinance is adopted. Item 45 is an ordinance rezoning property at 3620 Birch Street and to adopt a general development plan for a daycare facility. Questions on our presentation last evening? On a motion then by Councilmember Klinkhammer, seconded by Councilmember Von Hayden, item 45 is moved. Discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Worthman.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Clickhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Wall.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Wells.
Aye.
And that ordinance is adopted. And finally, item 46 is an ordinance rezoning property at 1807 North Oxford and to adopt a general development plan for the brewing project. Questions regarding this project from last evening? And on a motion then by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Strobel, item 46 is moved. Discussion. Councilmember Mitchell.
I just want to take this opportunity to say that while all this zoning looked real easy and went real smoothly, there was a lot of work that went into this on the part of community services and community development and the Plan Commission and the Waterways Commission and all of us. So thank you.
Any further discussion? And clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Clickhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Wall.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Wells.
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
And that ordinance is adopted. There are two ordinances for introduction, and it's my duty to read them into the record. Item 47 is an ordinance adopting, is an introduction of an ordinance in accordance with the Wisconsin statutes annexing to the city of Eau Claire a section of the town of Washington known as the Mega Co-op Petition, located at I-94 and East 93. The second ordinance for introduction is an ordinance in accordance with the Wisconsin statutes annexing to the city of Eau Claire from the town of Seymour, Eau Claire County, the Bouchard Petition, located at north of LaSalle Street and east of Abbey Hill Drive. That wasn't a very clear reading, I'm sorry. Does council wish to suspend the rules and take up either of these ordinances? I see no such desire. Announcements are in order. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam President. A couple of announcements. Reminder that Friday is the legislative breakfast with the Chamber's Eggs and Issues, and if you haven't signed up and want to, please let Kathy know. And then also a reminder, although we talked about it earlier in the evening, but Juneteenth is in Carson Park at the Pine Pavilion on Monday night at 5:30. And then next Tuesday is the Chamber's Hall of Fame Luncheon. And again, if you'd like to go to that, please let Kathy know and sign up. And then also, since it's timely and this just in, if you are interested, Eau Claire North has just beaten Green Bay 9-0 in their quarterfinals, and they move on at 6 o'clock tonight into their semifinals. So congratulations and good luck to North tonight.
Announcements by council members? Councilmember Klinkhammer.
Thank you. Not all of the reports, this may come as a shock to you, but I don't read 100% of them word for word. But I always look forward to the report on the waste treatment. I do examine that, and I find that just a wonderful return on that investment. In fact, you might say that, to quote the expression, to whom much is given, much is expected. And certainly our citizens pay us a lot of money to run this city well. And I think in terms of what our fire department has done to earn the status of type 1 hazardous waste, the way the money has been spent on our waste treatment to provide our citizens with the highest level of service in those two areas has to be, it is to me, and I hope it is to a lot of our people, our citizens that pay taxes, reassuring that we are good stewards of their resources.
Thank you. Mr. Peters.
Thank you. If I could, just to, and normally I wouldn't respond to that type of a comment, but we are very, very proud of the wastewater treatment service, and it is it's one of those quiet services that everybody expects. They want it to happen at a high quality level, and it does. And I'd be remiss if I didn't remind all of you of the comment of our former Public Works Director and City Engineer, where he said, "We strive to be number one in the business of number two."
Any other announcements or little speeches? Yeah, they're nice. They're nice. Okay, there being no further business to come before this body on a motion by Councilmember Worthman, seconded by Councilmember Beaton, we are adjourned without objection.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689. Or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.